Greetings, tribe. Just wanted to talk a little bit today about culture, and a few things have been coming up for me, and I just wanted to share. So, culture tends to limit our self-expression. It doesn't tend to; it does, and that is by design. And the way that culture limits our self-expression is because it's basically molding you to be a very specific member of the society. So culture also can be very tricky because it feels like it's accurate because there's so many people around you that's doing the same thing. But in actuality, a lot of times, culture, the way that we're molded, is actually detrimental to our own personal development. The society tends to encourage this sameness rather than being different. When there's something happening in your life, there's a stimulus, and then there's a response, and the culture teaches us to go immediately from stimulus to response. And the thing that we need to realize is that there's a space in between stimulus and response. And this space is critical, but very often overlooked. This space is what we need to take time to explore stimulus, and then we immediately respond. And this is just the way that we've been trained. But I think we need to focus more attention on the space between the stimulus and response, because in that space, this is where we have true choice. This is where our freedom lies, because when we focus in on this space, we realize that we really can make better decisions for our lives. This space is critical, and it needs to be developed. Now, what I mean by that is it takes forming a new habit in order to change your internal world and therefore change your external world. We don't decide our future. We don't decide our future. We decide our habits, and our habits is what decides our future. This is important. So the other way that culture really profoundly affects us is the way that the culture molds relationships. And so, for example, if we lived in a culture where a woman got married, and then 5 or 10 years into the marriage, the woman was expected to have a second husband. And if that was common, then it would be common, and it would be the norm. It would be the cultural acceptable practice, then that's what it would be. And people wouldn't think twice about it. It wouldn't seem odd. So culture really molds much of our perception and much of the things that we feel we need to be doing in our lives. Molds the choices that we make for our lives. And we have to consider that a lot of the choices that we're making in our lives is because it's molded by the culture, and it's not always necessarily the best choice for us, because a lot of time it's limiting our growth, it's limiting our personal self-development, our personal evolutionary process, our personal transformation process, because it's very empowering. And unfortunately, in this culture, in our society, it's much easier to control people who are just following the status quo, who are merely existing. The purposes of us being here now is to identify and to develop our uniqueness. This is not encouraged in our society. We encourage, the culture encourages sameness, and we do too, because since that's what we're embedded in, that's also what we teach our children to fit in. And then as humans, we have a natural need for acceptance. And I feel like this need is exploited because now if you don't follow the cultural norms, then you are outcasted or an outsider. Really questioning everything. We should be questioning everything. We should be questioning the thoughts that are going through our head, the choices that we're making for our lives. We should really question where the ideas for the choices that we're making for our lives is really coming from. Peace.